Hello.
Hello. I think we should check the stream. How many people have joined? I think 14. So, are we
Yeah.
audible? Hello?
Yes, hello
Ashish,
everyone, please. Are we audible? Nobody has responded yet.
wait for a minute or second, some seconds. Yes, okay. So, cool. We can start.
Okay.
So, hello everyone. This is Pankaj and here is Ashish. So, this is our first session. This is
Yeah,
organized
hi.
by Codecasm, and this session is basically for those guys who are recently started and maybe going to start on the Angular first time. So kind of we are targeting to the beginner audience. And basically in this session we are going to cover the content like first session the Ashish will go over the introduction to Angular topic, which will cover some basics like how to getting started with Angular, how to set up Angular environment on the local machine, and then a little bit about Angular CLI. Plus, thereafter he will mention few things about Angular architecture of code, what CLI generates and all. And later on, I will go over to into the Angular fundamentals. And yeah, so in Angular fundamentals, I will cover some concepts which are like the basics of Angular, like component, services, how to make an HTTP call, and what are the different set of directives that are there in Angular. Likewise. So, Ashish, I think we should begin.
Yes.
Over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Pankaj. Thanks for introducing me. So we will start here. So I hope everyone can listen me.
Yeah,
Pankaj.
go ahead, Ashish. I think they are.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So hello everyone. So today we will go through introduction to Angular. So agenda for today will be I'm listing the agenda. Angular JS and Angular. What is Angular and why Angular? Angular core features. Introduction to Angular CLI. Let me check whether you are getting the slides or not. Yes, I hope.
Yeah, it is. It is working.
Yeah, thank you. Introduction to Angular CLI. Then we will make a demo app here to get a demonstration how we will create it. And we will see the concept of Angular bootstrapping. So first of all, we will see what is Angular JS and Angular. So here, as we almost many of Angular developer uh, familiar with this logo, Angular JS by Google, and this is the new version of Angular. So what was the difference between these two? So this Angular JS was the Angular 1 version. So it was we can say it was a framework, but it was not a complete framework as our Angular 2 plus. Why it is mentioned 2 plus? Like Angular 2, Angular 4, 5, 6, any version of the Angular ahead of 2 is considered as Angular itself. So it is written 2 plus. So we have covered all the versions upper than 2. So the basic difference between that Angular 2 plus is a complete framework as compared to Angular JS. So we will go to next slide. What is Angular? So Angular basically we can't say is a library. It is a JavaScript framework like it has used TypeScript in backend to type check or statically bind our data types. So it will later transpiled and give us a JavaScript output. So it is called a JavaScript framework. It is end-to-end framework. Why end-to-end framework? Because not only development but also from development till testing, each and everything is provided by this framework itself. So it is called end-to-end framework. Codes are organized in correct manner, we can say. Like as we know, it is a library. Oh, sorry. As we know, it is a framework. So framework has some standards, some ways. So they are organized in such a way. So they are organized in such a way we can scale it. We can even
Ashish,
easily like
Ashish,
in modular structure. Yes, sir.
yeah, sorry to
Yes,
interrupt.
Pankaj.
There is some problem with your voice.
Yes, yes.
Some interruption is happening. Some noise is there. Can you check your headphone
Okay.
connected? Yeah.
Yeah, just a second. Just a second. Just a second. Thank you for mentioning that. Am I audible now?
Yeah, it is. And can you make the full screen instead of the this layout?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. So going ahead to the next slide. Why Angular? So Angular provides some good features like CLI tool. So CLI tool is like for creating an Angular project, we require many configuration files, app folder, app structure. So creating it manually can be a pain. So Angular provides a CLI tool which makes it much easier to get started with. Angular provides Protector. So what is Protector? As I mentioned, it is an end-to-end framework which provides such testing also. So Protector is used for testing our Angular app. It is a cross-platform, so we can develop mobile application, web application, as well as desktop application using Angular. Angular is basically used for crafting SPA, single page application. So what does single page application means? We have only one page which renders all the contents what we want. So it is called single page application. It has modular structure. So modular structure, as I mentioned before, it helps in scaling the project easily. It helps to maintain the project easily. Angular is open source. So if you find any issue around, or if you are facing or you want to add any feature, you want to contribute to Angular anyhow, you can go to their GitHub and start contributing, like filing an issue or checking their doc, reading their doc, and if you want any improvement, you can help with them. So Angular has a huge community. As we all know, Angular is developed by Google itself. So being Google has backed up, and also Angular provides some good features like CLI tool. So CLI tool is like for creating an Angular project, we require many configuration files, app folder, app structure. So create. So Angular. Pankaj, I think there is some noise. Yeah, sorry guys. So community being
Hello, Ashish.
developed by Google.
Ashish,
Yes, yes.
your your sound is still noisy on live stream. I'm not
Okay.
sure why. Can you try it without headphone or maybe reconnect your headphone? Yeah, I feel this is better now. I feel. Let's see. Let me see.
Okay.
Can you fix something? I mean, can you?
Yeah, I just reconnected it.
Okay, I think it is improved. You can go ahead.
Sorry guys for the interruption. So we were on Angular community. So I was mentioning that being supported by Google, Angular has a huge community worldwide who are contributing it, and so Angular is always updated, and its framework is improving day by day. So heading to the Angular core features, we have components, we have directive, service, type, Angular module, and bindings. So we will check it one by one. So what are Angular components? So we can say a component is some entity in Angular which keeps a metadata and determines us how they are binded and how they are going to be processed. Like here we can see in our component that we have template URL, which mentions that our view will be called from this HTML, and all the styles will be applied from this CSS file. Heading to the next, directive. So directive is actually, we can say, with the @ symbol, anything, any method which is added with means prefixed with the @ symbol can be known as directive. Angular has some predefined directive as like component. So component is also a good example of a directive. So it basically helps us to attach some behavior to elements in the DOM of our view, HTML view, we can say. Heading further, service. So service keeps a hold of our value and functions, whatever we have mentioned in our class file, and it helps to share data between the components, between the app easily, and all the APIs which are being called in this application are placed right here. So as we can see, how we can identify these services. So services mainly have this @injectable directive here. So because of that, we can identify this is a service which will be getting injected in our app. So pipe is something which has some values which will be transformed to display. Here is an example. Like if we want to display a date, so date object may have some unfiltered value, we can say, so coming from our class file. So while showing it on our HTML, we will apply this pipe. This is called pipe filter. So we will apply here, and this medium mentioned is how it should be rendered here. So it is transformed and it will give this kind of output. Angular module. So we can say that it is a very important entity in Angular, which is a cohesive block of functionality. Actually, it organizes all the application, and here it has all the information about whatever component we are using in our Angular application is being declared here. Whatever module we are using or going to be using in our application is maintained here. So we can call it as a root of application. Heading to the binding. So we use data binding or interpolation, we can say. So anything which is binded between these two curly braces on our HTML file can be called as interpolation, which is a data binding. Later we are heading for property binding. So property binding, we can identify it by their square bracket. So it can be applied as an attribute in our HTML tag. So this is how we can bind it. And later we have event binding. So it is also written in our HTML tags, like we can write into HTML in the place of attribute, like event name. So event name like click, change, all the events on that event, we can call any predefined or desired method we want to call. So this is a kind of example here. So let's go ahead. So what we require to get started with the Angular? So first thing, Node and npm. Npm stands for Node Package Manager. So Node is we can say it helps us to run JavaScript in our Chrome, which is provided by Chrome V8 engine again. And Node, while installing the Node, we come up with Node and npm both itself. Like npm node package manager, as I mentioned. So Angular CLI uses it. TypeScript, so we don't have to bother about TypeScript, because when we install Angular CLI, as I told, CLI maintains all the things, so it will be installed. You will require some code editor, so you can use any Visual Studio Code, Atom, Sublime, or any. So
Hello,
currently I am using Visual Studio Code, and
hello, Ashish.
yes,
It is still
yes,
noisy.
Pankaj.
Is it? It is still noisy. Can you check what is wrong with your setup? Hello, Ashish. Hello.
Did you? Can you hear me, please?
Let me check.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Give me a moment.
Yeah, guys, please, if you are able to hear, please comment it.
Yeah, it seems to be fine now. Go ahead. I don't know. It is not happening with
Yeah.
StreamYard, but live stream. Not sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, as I mentioned, that I love to prefer Visual Studio Code to like code into Angular. Now we will see Angular CLI, what exactly it does. So Angular CLI, as we know, CLI stands for Command Line Interface Tool. So what it does, it initializes, it develops, it helps developing our Angular application. It gives a scaffold of our Angular application. What the scaffold means, like a kind of boilerplate where we can get started. So like if we get any boilerplate, we can understand what kind of the architecture and where our views are mentioned, and uh, how to use it. So CLI provides it, and it helps maintaining our Angular application, like adding some components, deleting some components, adding some services. So CLI is a many, we can say, root part of this Angular development. So now we will create our demo Angular application. So mainly these four commands we can say to get started with your Angular application. So if once you have installed your node, we can go with this Angular CLI global. This installs your Angular CLI globally on your system. Again, we use ng new my dream app. That is an example. You can give any name. I have given first app. I will show you it quickly. Actually, I have created our application because it is really time consuming, so I didn't wanted to invest that time here. So once our application is created, it creates a folder, and all our application files are placed in that. So we need to navigate into our application, and then to serve it to client, we use this command ng serve. So I have already opened it for you. So we can see here in terminal, actually Visual Studio Code provides us the internal terminal, which is very good option. So here, as you can see, I have used ngs. So serve can be written as s also. In shorthand, we can say command. So now we will see our application is being served here. So it mentions here that http localhost 4200 is your link where you can see your application. So we will head there and type localhost 4200. Yes, so our demo Angular application is here. I think there is nothing in our sorry, app component file. Let me check once. Yeah, it is there. There might be some problem. Okay. It took some time on my machine. Sorry for that. So here we can see this is a, scaffold application we are talking about. So we can see how that Angular has provided it, like a CLI, what I was talking about, the scaffold. So here there are many configuration files, we can say. So these configuration files and our application files all are maintained by our Angular CLI. So here in SRC, our main app is situated. In app folder, we can get our root component, where we can see this is app.component.html, from where our main the view we are seeing on our display is coming. So I will edit it and I will mention here that welcome to quarantine days. So I will save it. So see, it automatically compiles it, and it will give us output, and Angular will take care. So CLI does it for us, so you can rely, and it automatically refresh once it is compiled fully. So till the time it compiles, we can see here that we have various files. All our images and external resources goes into asset folder. Index.html, I was talking about single page application. So index is the page where all the content gets rendered. So we can have a look here. So this is our index page, this app root. Within this body, all our contents are rendered, and we can see our contents in this body.
Ashish,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. Can you try without your headphone? Maybe your headphone is causing an issue. There is very, I
Yeah,
mean,
maybe.
some weird voice is coming. Can you just try without headphone?
Yeah, are you able to hear it?
Yes. Uh,
Yeah, I have removed my headphone.
okay, continue. It's better, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So let's see our application is compiled or not. It's taking some time. Yeah, till that we can check some comments coming from.
No, you can. You can
Uh,
go ahead. I will check that. So you
okay,
can.
okay, no issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, so in this way we can yeah, here we have Angular routing file. Uh, so hello. So we can see here like Angular provides you routes also. So why these routes are used? Like it is an SPA, so every view is being routed here. So everything like if you route some component, it will be rendered on index itself, but it will give you different view, like for A, B, C. If you route to B, so view B will be rendered in index.html in app root component. So how Angular gets to know about which one to render? So here I will show you that in index.html app root, this app root should be mentioned somewhere. So it is mentioned in our app component.ts. You can see, as I told you, that component directive has metadata. So it is mentioned here, selector app root. So in this app root in HTML, we have something called router outlet. So this is basically used to route your views. Okay, so our application has been compiled. We can have a look on it. Yeah, it is getting refreshed automatically. So this is the feature which Angular CLI provides. You don't have to care much about it. So Angular CLI take cares of everything. So this all features make Angular great framework, isn't it? So this router outlet helps you to get your routed views here. So we use a router outlet, and routing file helps us. Just let me check why it's giving some problem. Okay, I think so. There is some problem with my machine. So I hope you have got an idea how it is compiled and where to see your Angular application. So we will go to the next slide. So Angular architecture and Bootstrap. So as I have mentioned there, I just told you some architectural things of Angular application. So here index.html is the main file which is getting rendered firstly when our Angular application is being called, and it gets all the information from app module. So app module is, as I told you, it is very important entity which keeps all the records of the things, like which component is used and that component, what all files are binded with that components. And finally, when we compile that, we get this output which we have seen here. So I will show you Angular Bootstrap, what exactly how Angular gets Bootstrap. So I will show you from here. So basically, when our Angular application is created, there is one file called angular.json. So angular.json is the main file where all the configurations are maintained. So here, as we can see, this main, like here it is mentioned that main.ts should be called first, and what this main.ts does, we will see in src, which is our app folder. So in main.ts we can see that it has imported some libraries from Angular, like Angular core and platform browser dynamic. And again, this method is called platform dynamic. Then bootstrap module, it is mentioned that it should bootstrap this app module. And in app module, when we check in app module, so here we get four kinds of array. Like declaration, it keeps the record of all the components related to this module. Again, imports array keeps all track of all module used in the within these components. And providers, as we see the services, all the services are being mentioned here in this array. And bootstrap, so this bootstrap mention uh, which component should be rendered when our Angular is bootstrapped. So our app component should be started. So app component, in app component, as we see here, demo Angular application, and it is associated with app.component.html. So our HTML, this view will be rendered, which I have shown you. So in this way, we have understood how Angular gets bootstrapped. So thank you guys. If you have any question, so we will take questions for both the sessions. In last, we have Q question and answer panel. So now next session will be headed by Pankaj. So it's over to you, Pankaj. And really thanks for listening me patiently, and sorry for the disturbance caused from me.
Hey, hi. Am I audible? Ashish?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, you are.
So let me share my screen.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. Can you see it?
Yes, yes, your screen is visible.
My voice is good or it has any noise? Hello?
Guys, please comment and tell us.
Hello. Comment in chat if my voice quality is not
Yes,
good.
yes, it is good.
Okay, nice. So I will begin.
If you have been clear. Yeah.
Yep. Uh, so to begin with, so yeah, start. Yeah. So hello everyone. This is Pankaj, and basically, so welcome to the a quarantine day with Angular. So thanks Ashish for having a great session on Angular, introduction to Angular. So I will continue further on that part. So in this session I will be covering up the Angular fundamentals and so let me introduce myself. So I'm Pankaj Parker. I'm working as a senior software engineer in Deskera. I'm also GD, MVP, and community contributor. So I hope you will enjoy this session. So in this session, I will be mostly cover the fundamentals of Angular like binding, components, services, HTTP call, and some things related to forms and two-way binding and all. So and in this session, I'm not going to use any slide. There will be only code. So be with me and let me know if you have any question or problem. Put it in a chat. Ashish will inform me. Okay, so as of now, what Ashish told you is how to create an Angular project and how to get it set up. So I have created the same Angular project using ng new command, and my project name is let me close this file. Project name is Introduction to Angular, and I ran it using npm start command. So it is running here, which is like the initial page of Angular. So to begin with, I will be going with the binding concept. What exactly binding means. So for now, I'm going to remove all the HTML and let's say I'm going to put a title variable in on the HTML page with the double curly braces around it. And inside a app component.ts, I have one property. So before going into the depth of that, I want to revise once again the component concept. So basically, component is a consist of a plain ES6 class. So if you look at this component, this is export class app component. But on top of it, if we added the component decorator, it becomes a component. So basically, what this component decorator does is it accepts a parameter in terms of object, which is considered as a metadata, and the main part of that is selector. So selector means how your component should act like. Over here I mentioned ita-root. So that means whenever any element mentioned with the ita root, it will load this component. But while loading it, what it does is it create an instance of this app component. It loads the template from the template URL, and then while showing it on the HTML, it will check what is there inside the template. So for now, the template is app component.html, and inside the HTML there is a title. So it tries to evaluate all the bindings. So over here, whenever what is the meaning of binding? So binding means whenever you want to show a model value, a value present inside a class to the HTML, that is what called as binding. So basically in Angular, this is called as interpolation and one-way binding. So when you mention title, automatically it will check what is there inside the title, and it will be thrown up into the DOM. Okay. So basically what happens is as a last step, it checks what template I should load with which component instance, and it evaluates all the binding present inside the app component HTML with respect to the context of app component, which is going to be this of the app component. Okay, let's save this and see what happens on the HTML. See, so what had happened, I have the introduction to HTML and introduction to Angular string, and that directly got binded on the page. Okay, so that is cool. So further part, what I'm going to do is we will be playing around a few things with Angular. So I'm going to add an input type text, and let's try to bind the value to this input box. So in general, in JavaScript or JavaScript, what we do is we add a value attribute, and we could say like whatever we will say here, that will be appearing inside the input box. So let me refresh this and see. So something got populated. But in Angular, if you want to play around with a DOM like input elements and you want to bind some value, what you can do is you can use binding. And this binding is called as property binding. So basically, whenever you want to mention a property,
Pankaj,
yes,
Amol has requested you to please increase the font so he can see it.
sure, I will do. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel it. Is it better now? Yeah, sure. I think this should be better, or I will give one more. Yeah, I think this should be better. On the HTML also, I will increase the font. I feel this should work over here as well. Okay, I think this should be fine now. Yes. So moving ahead. So this is what you would do if I would ask you to bind some value to the input. But in Angular, if you want to do the same thing on top of input text area or other DOM, you will use property binding. So property binding meaning you have to use square bracket around a property, and in case of input we were manipulating value property, correct? So just mention the square bracket and say the property name, and then inside the expression or a value of it, you can mention the what you want to evaluate. So basically this will be the title. So title is nothing but inside app component we have title as in this guy. Okay, so let's see what happens on the application. So okay, yeah, cool. It bounded the introduction to Angular value onto the HTML. So this is kind of one-way binding, what we can see. So suppose if I ask you to do something like this, I will print the title property here, and let's see what happens if I change the value inside the input box. So it is like this, and if I try to change the value, oh, this value is not getting reflected somehow, but inside the input box it is something else. So can you do something so that the value which you are changing inside the input box will reflected on the HTML binding? So let's try to do that. If I would ask you to do this in plain JavaScript, what you would do? So basically you will put an event on input box, which could be change event, and when the change event triggers, you can change the value of title. So try the same thing. So to do that, you should bind the change event on top of input box. So how to do that? So for doing the same in Angular, there is a way. In case of property binding, what I say, you should use square bracket, but in case of event binding, you should use parenthesis. So in parenthesis, you should mention what events you want to trigger, and if that event triggers, what expression or function you want to evaluate. So in this case, I'm going to write the inline expression that will be title equal to $event. So basically, dollar event is a special variable name that you have to remember whenever it comes to event. Angular returns a $event variable. So in this case, when change event happens, it will emit a $event, and inside that, what you have to do is you have to bind the $event value to the title so that the title will change. So let's see what happens. I think it got refreshed. Let me see. See, the change event got triggered when you blurs out. So that is basic. And as soon as you change something, it got reflected on the UI. So basically you have implemented the two-way binding behavior on your own. But we are using Angular framework. We shouldn't be using that, correct? I mean, this could be silly. I mean, in Angular, there must be something that could make our life easy. So yes, there is something which is called as, let me comment this out. And there is something called as ng model directive. So we are going to use our first directive called as ng model. And that model will be what? Title. So what is this? What do you think? What is this square bracket? Square bracket meaning I mentioned some property binding. Okay, so let me go into the depth of it. It is not exactly the property binding, but I will come to that point later. So let's see what is happening on the HTML. Nothing is appearing in the input box, but there is some error. ng model, since it is not known property of input. So let me go to the basics. So what has happened is, whenever I mention anything inside a square bracket on top of any DOM, what happens with Angular is Angular try to check that that particular value inside is that value is present on that DOM. Like before we mention the value. So basically value property was present on the input DOM. So that were reflecting the title value directly in the input box. But in this case, I mentioned ng model. So this is not present on top of input, correct? So what Angular does after that is it checks what selector it is. So basically, if you go with the HTML terms, this is the attribute, correct? And in attribute is considered as a directive. So Angular tries to check, is there any directive available with ng model? No, I don't know. That's what Angular says here. The ng model, since it is a known, it isn't known property of input, correct? So let me go into the basic. We have app module, which is a very topmost module, which it is kind of namespace to your application. It is a barrel which contains everything. So over here, I just mentioned declaration as an app component and imports as in browser module. So basically, we are importing one more module, which is browser module, and browser module involves ng for, ng if, and other basic directives, but not the ng model. So to use that, somehow the ng model directive or whatever directive you are using should be a part of your app module, correct? So to do that, we are going to include the forms module over here, and that comes from forms namespace, not forms namespace, forms package. Okay, and let's see what happens on the UI. Okay, let it get refreshed. Still something is missing. Let me see. Am I having any cache issue? Let me see app.module.ts. That is there. Let me see if should I need to use them. Yesterday also the same thing happened. I know there is no need. Yes, let me see if still it is not recognizing ng model as in the it is unknown property of. Am I missing anything? Let me see if ng model with the double parenthesis. I mean, it should not, but I'm sure. Like, okay, that is working, but not this one. Okay, so for now, I mean, I will come to the point. I don't know why it's supposed to work. It should work. Yeah, it is working. I don't know what was the issue before. Okay, so it is working now. Not sure. It was might be a cache. So what has happened is, as soon as you say ng model, it works as the same as that of value attribute. It it internally changes the value attribute of the particular DOM element where you have placed it. But if you want to implement the two-way binding behavior, so basically, if you see that this is a one-way binding, if you change the model, it won't reflect it on the UI. Okay. So what if you want to do that? Then you just need to say double parenthesis, the parenthesis around the ng model. So basically, what happens is internally, Angular takes care of updating the model value as soon as you make any changes to the to the input box. So this is what the two-way binding is called as in Angular. Let me go into the little more the evaluation of this. So basically, internally, what Angular does is you might have confused, like before we have used square bracket and angle bracket, not angle bracket, parenthesis separately, but now we are using this way. So this is called as a banana in the box syntax. But internally, what happens is when it comes to this, Angular internally make changes something like this, and it append change event, and it say title is equal to $event. So basically what happens is whatever you mention. So let's see what happens after that change. So basically ng model change event is similar as that of input change event, and ng model act as same as that of value. So if you try to make any change, see that automatically gets reflects. So this is the longhand. If you have some funky operation to be done here with the validation and all, you can use this long form. But if you want to use the short form of this, just go ahead with the ng model. Okay. So that was it. We learned the property binding, event binding, then the two-way binding and one-way binding. This is the one-way binding. So moving ahead, and now we will see that there is one scenario. Basically, I came to a requirement where, suppose you got a requirement where you want to show the user list onto the page, correct? So how you would do that? So before doing that, what you can do is you can create a new component. So for doing that, you open the terminal in code. If you want to do that, just go at the bottom and pull it up. You will see the terminal. I'm going to open a new window and a new terminal, and just going to say fire some command, which is going to be starts with ng. Ng stands for Angular CLI. And then I'm going to say Angular CLI, please generate a component for me. The component name will be user list. And as soon as you do that, Angular CLI automatically creates a user list component, scaffold component inside your app folder. So see, it has created these 4 files, and also it made an entry in app module.ts so that it would work. And the app module.ts must have made an entry inside the declarations array. Okay. So let's see what is there inside the user list component. Nothing. There is a selector and the simple ng on init function. So I'm going to use this component on my app component HTML, and let's see if it works or not. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to navigate to application. Yeah, user list works. So that is working. So now I'm going to work inside the user list component. This one. So we're going to change the HTML, maybe saying h1 user list. And inside the user list, I'm going to use ULLI. And perhaps OL, ordered list. And inside this, I will be having multiple users. So first thing I will be showing up here is a name of the person. For now, I am hard coding it, and its age, not age, but username. Okay, just to check everything is working fine on the HTML, reflecting on the HTML. Okay, it is working. So now what we will be doing is we will be having one users variable. Okay, I'm just bypassing the TypeScript so it wouldn't yell at me, and I'm going to assign the users variable with the collection of user, and the collection of user may look like this: ID, name, suppose Tom, and then username. And we are going to use this variable in our HTML. So how to do that? We have earlier seen that we are going to use users, but we are going to look at the users first user. So for now, I'm going to make an hack: users of 0.name, and then similarly for username, I'm going to say users.username. And I saved this, and let's see what appears on the HTML. Tom, and username is Tom. So everything got reflected. So suppose there is one more variable that is present inside the user list. So I'm going to add one more object, not variable, which is going to be a to and Jerry, and username is Jerry. Let's see what appears on the HTML. It won't show it, but I'm going to add the second variable manually, which is going to be 1, 1. We are assuming that it should reflect on the UI, correct? It is appearing, but the user in actual real world application, this doesn't happen in this way. The user list may have multiple element, 10,000 or maybe a lakh. So how you can handle this situation? So in Angular, there is a directive called as ngFor. So ngFor directive can be used to for loop over a collection, and you can repeat a template. So in this case, what we can do is we can for loop over a collection. The collection name is users, and you can use this particular syntax. So let user of users. I'm not sure if you are finding this difficult to understand. So let me make it a little bit easier to understand it. So why we have used why Angular team has used let users of users. So let's copy this syntax and go into the console. You will see that this syntax is exactly similar to ES6 for loop. And I'm going to do a console log inside the for loop, which is going to be a user. See, so if you want to remember this, just remember this is exactly ES6 for loop. Okay. Now I think so we should check our HTML page, what is happening. So basically we have repeated this template n number of time, basically the how many users are there inside the users collection. Okay, same output. So far so cool. So yeah, if I'm going fast, please mention in the chat. I will check it and will accordingly slow my speed. Okay, I am proceeding ahead. Next thing is we should look at further step. So in basically what we did right now is we have directly mentioned the user collection over here, correct? And in real world application, this doesn't happen in this way. If you put this collection directly inside your component, the component code is going to blown up above the standard lines, like more than 200 if it goes up. So that is not good. So we should move this code to somewhere. So in Angular, there is a way to do such kind of thing. So there is a service. Service is used for share a common code or make an API call or store some configuration. So for this case, we can use a service, and from the service we can retrieve the users. Okay. So I'm going to comment this. I'm going to create a service. using a CLI. So to create a service, you can use ng generate command, but mention service as in parameter and then service name. So the service name in this case I'm going to mention is user. What Angular will do is, since I haven't mentioned any path, it will create a user service inside the app folder itself. Okay. So it had created the user service, and let's look at what is there inside the user service. Oh, user service is again a class, but there is something else. Like in component case, it was a component, but in this case, it is @injectable. So I don't know. I mean, maybe you must assuming that it should be service. But basically, what happens is whenever service comes into the picture, it comes via a dependency injection, and that's why the decorator name over here is injectable, and there is a parameter inside it. So the parameter is provider in root. Earlier, when this parameter wasn't there, what you should have been doing is you must have mentioned your service inside the providers array, so that Angular will understand some service is there, and I would look in for that when someone asks for it. But this syntax has been shortened by having the one parameter inside the injectable metadata, decorator metadata. Just by saying root, that means it will inject that service on your root module, app module. Okay. So that's it. So you created one service, and inside the service I'm going to mention one method called as get user list, and from this method I'm going to return that collection which we have mentioned here, and then save it. Over here I'm just going to say blank, and now it came to the thing, how can we call the service from the component? Okay, before I said how component evaluates, like it checks the selector, loads the component and template, bind them together and show it on the DOM. But when the component instance get instantiated, at that time constructor, obviously constructor calls at first, and inside a constructor you can mention a parameters, and that parameters like this, I'm going to mention the service. I will come to the point why I mentioned here. List, sorry, user service, not user list service. Yeah, user service. So basically, whenever a component is getting instantiated, a dependency injection hijacks the constructor and tries to evaluate each constructor parameter, and it says like I want to create one user service variable that should be of type user service. So that time what Angular does is dependency injection kicks in, and it tries to check is there any user service registered inside our app module or any module which I'm in. So it will check like is there any user service present. Okay, it is there, and over here it says provider in root, so it is mentioned in the app module. So it will go ahead and directly create an instance of this user service and returns it. So basically inside our component, this user service variable can be used, and we can call the get user list method. I hope this is clear. If you have any question, you can enter in the chat. I will get back on to that after the session. Okay, so moving ahead, let's see what is happening. Ideally, what should happen? Get user list method is returning an array of users. So it should return it, and it should be printed on the UI. Let me refresh this. Okay, already got refreshed. Let's see what's happening in the HTML. Yeah, so see, there are two li got repeated. That is because of ng-for. Okay, okay, good. Let's move ahead and go into the as nearer as possible to making an real world application. So do you think in real world application there are the hard coded values of users? No, that generally come from database, correct? So ideally what we should do is we should make an Ajax call to retrieve collection, correct, from the database. So let's do that, but we are not sure how to make an Ajax call in Angular. We should do that. How can we do that? To do that, we must use one more dependency. That dependency name is HTTP client. Okay, so HTTP client comes from common/HTTP client. So internally Angular's check and do the things that is needed for retrieving the HTTP object, and we are going to use that HTTP object over here. Let's see, is it working or not with this dependency? Oh, nothing is working. Let's see what is the error. If there is some error, it is saying null injector error. So do you see whenever you see injector related error, there generally it is related to your service. Some service is missing, like it is saying no provider for HTTP client. So generally the provider means is it is referring to the providers array of your particular specific module. It is saying like somehow it is not found in the app module providers or a respective module provider. So let's try to resolve that. Earlier, we were getting one error related to ng model, and what it was saying is ng model directive was not found. That time we have introduced forms module, correct, and everything got started working. But in this case, now we are trying to use HTTP client service, and which is not found. So what we supposed to do is we must import that module where the service is. So for that you have to import HTTP client module that resides inside the Angular common HTTP module, and let's see what happens. This error ideally should went away. Yeah, it went away. Let's try to make an Ajax call and retrieve the users. So to get a dummy data, I am going to use a JSON placeholder fake API, which returns the fake user, and out of which they have provided different set of methods to retrieve a data. You can retrieve post, comments, photos. In our case, I'm going to use users. So this is going to be a URL, and I will be opening a service and going to use the HTTP. So I'm going to make a user's Ajax call. So that is going to be this dot HTTP. It should be a get call, then mention a method get, and then mention a URL in it. That's it. And then returns a user object. Okay. To bypass the TypeScript, I'm just saying any type here so that TypeScript won't yell at me. So if I look at the users variable type, it is saying observable. So observable, we haven't looked at it yet. So basically it is a kind of RxJS thing. Not RxJS, but HTTP get method returns an RxJS observable. And whenever, for now, since this is a basic session, I'm not going into the depth of observable. But what you must understand is observable returns some value. So in this case, Ajax call is going to make HTTP get is going to make for this URL, and it would return a result, whatever coming from the HTTP call. So whenever observable returns any value, you can retrieve that value inside the subscribe function. Okay, you just need to remember that whenever there is observable, you can subscribe to it and get the emitted value inside the first parameter, which is going to be next emitted value function. In this function, you will get the users list, and that users list will be directly bounded to the users object, what we were doing earlier. Okay, so this was the first function. If in case you want to also handle the error, there could be a second function, error. and maybe you can display the error message somewhere on the screen. I'm going to copy this, just mention as an error message as a parameter so that it will be suffice all its error. Okay, nice. Let's see what's appear on the UI. I'm going to debug this little bit so that we can also debug this and see what's happening. Let me increase the font size so that everyone can see it. There is an error. Let me see what it is. It is saying this user service dot get user list dot subscribe is not a function. Let me open the user list service. I am sure there is a cache issue. Yeah, there is a cache issue. Let me refresh this once again. Still there is a cache problem. Network disable cache. Not sure why it is happening. Earlier also in ng model case it had happened. Let me try it in incognito video. Incognito window. Still there. Did I saved it? No, sorry. Not a cache issue. It is my issue. Sorry. Something got there and it made an Ajax call and it retrieved the 10 users from there. Nice. So we retrieved 10 users and now will be ideally what should happen? It should show the 10 users, correct? So yeah, we have successfully made an Ajax call and retrieved the users from the server. So the next functionality, what we would try is try to evaluate the forms, and for that, I'm going to do some add one edit button in front of each record. I'm sorry about the CSS. I'm not going to take care of that because we are not focusing on the CSS part. But it would have been good if I have added some classes. But yeah, let it be for now. So what I'm going to do now is in front of each record, I'm going to add an edit button. And as soon as you click on edit button, it should show the edit view. So let's add the edit button and try to show a edit view at the bottom, perhaps here in the bottom of the screen. So if you do edit for the second record, it should show the record populated with the two inputs, name and username. So to do that, let me add one div over here, and that div will be consist of a name and input box, type text, and we are going to use two-way binding here, which is going to be banana in the box of ng model. And for now, just remove this. I will be coming to the point to use the ng model thing once again. Let me copy this and paste it for the username. And let's see what appears on the HTML. I'm going to add a edit user as an h2 tag. Yeah, everything is appear. Now what we supposed to do, add an edit button in front of each record, and on click of that, it should show the record over here. So what we can do is, we can add edit button, we can bound some event to it, maybe edit user event, and inside the edit user event, we can maintain one variable called as selected user, and assign the value of currently clicked element. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to add a button, and that button will be edit. And to bind an event for element, we can just say parenthesis and the event name, edit user, and then next thing is Wait a minute. Let me drink some water. Edit user, and then I'm going to put that edit user event inside it, the component, so that the edit user event will call on click. And as I said, we are going to say selected. We are going to you know just assign the selected user value, maintain a selected user variable inside our component, and going to assign the current user value. So how to do that? So let's comment this line and see what happens when I mean, is it getting called or not? At least click for user. So edit button is there, and as soon as I click on that, let's see. So basically, click for user function is getting triggered. So now you have to maintain a selected user variable, and on click of it, you should set the current user to that particular currently click user to the selected user variable. So to do that, if you look at the HTML, we are looping over the users collection. Okay, and the user object is representing the current user, which is using in the template. So we can pass in the user object inside the edit user function, and we can assign that user in over here, and the selected user will be reflected inside the user object. Let me see if that is happening or not. I'm going to put a debugger inside the edit user method, and as soon as I do that, I'm saying I clicked on the first user. The user is a Lenegram. Okay, so selected user is assigned from the component. Let's go back to the code, and what we will do right now is just to verify. We should populate edit user, the selected user over here. Okay, so we are going to bind ng model, because we want to also make sure that two-way binding should happen. First is name, and the second one is username. And let's see what happens. So, oh, something got broken. So what it is saying is, it is saying cannot read property name of undefined. Are you familiar with this error? It is familiar. I mean, it is same as that of what happens with JavaScript. When you try to you define the object where user, and then you say user dot name, it will say the name property of undefined. So that is what happening. Selected user is not defined yet, and we are trying to access the name property from it. So to avoid this behavior, what you can do is you can use one more directive, which is you might be using a lot in Angular, ngIf. So ngIf, as name suggests, it is kind of if and else. So if stands for ngIf takes an expression, and it says whenever it is true, then show the DOM, add the DOM into the HTML. Otherwise, the remove the DOM. If it is false, then remove the DOM from the HTML. So I just saved it, and let's see what appears on the page. Let me close this, and as soon as I say edit, it has populated the maybe I have made a mistake in the ng model of username. Let me correct. Add username. Sorry, username is small case. Over here also it will be in small case. Okay, let's do that, and it is editing each element. We are successfully. Now what we can do is we can add a update button and cancel button over here, so that as soon as an edit complete, it will close the edit user block and just open, and changes will be reflected over here. So let's add two button, update and cancel, and let's have a kind of CRUD operation in in here. So I'm going to add two buttons, one more div. cancel. Cancel, and then let's add the update and cancel function in the code. In this case, I know it is not going to happen with the real world application, but in this case, I'm just going to set selected user as in null, so that the div which we are showing for edit user will went away. Okay, so I'm going to save this and we'll navigate back to the application to see it in effect. Edit user, as soon as you make any changes, you can say update, and yeah, that went away. Same for cancel, it is happening, correct? But tell me one thing, in application, like suppose like edit feature, you have a setting, you have one more option to appear on the screen. So do you think like adding the div one below the another is the great solution? No, it is not. So basically, for solving such problem, the routing can come into the picture. So what is routing basically is, I would just like to show the Gmail to you, and you can tell you can better understand by that way. So if you look at a Gmail, what happens is whenever I am on inbox, you will see that the URL stays the some prefix is there, but thereafter there is a hash and inbox. So that time it shows some content over here in the middle section. And as soon as I change the URL to start, it will change the middle section only. It doesn't reload the whole section. So this is a SPA concept kind of. So what happens is in this routing is the way we should implement the routing is we should place some placeholder element inside the HTML, and what will happen is it keeps eye on the URL, and whenever a URL changes, it will check what URL is there, and based on some configuration mentioned in the background, it will load the template with appropriate JavaScript code. So that is what the router is. So in this case, what we can do is, in our case, we can use two different view. First one is user list and second one is edit user. Okay, so let's try to create a router for us. So what I'm going to do that now is I'm going to close all the files so that so I won't be confused with the files. And let me expand this app module, and I'm going to add a route. So basically, to configure a route, you must have some kind of configuration of routing, and that configuration can be a kind of key value pair or the object which manages two things. One is path. When anything appears in the URL like users, okay, I want to show something. So in Angular case, we are going to show some component. So in our case, the component will be user list component. Okay, and let's see what happens if I do that. But this is not enough to make sure the router is coming into the picture. So we have to somehow give this configuration of routing to the Angular router. So to do that, go into the app module, and inside the imports, first thing is you have to import the router module. Okay, and router module comes from a router. And then to router you can provide a configuration. So in this case, we are creating a topmost root level routing. So I'm going to use for root method. For child feature modules, you can use for child method, and for root option, you can pass on the routes, which is the configuration of your current routing. Okay, and just save it, and let's see what appears on the page. Yeah, that's not enough. So basically it is showing the user list page, but if you look at the HTML, what I did is inside the root component, I directly mentioned the user list component. Okay, let me zoom in by bit, user list component. So that's why it directly came. Remember I told you there should be a placeholder that will keep eye on the browser URL and change the things accordingly. So in Angular, there is a directive for that. The directive name is router outlet. Okay, and that router outlet directive is nothing but keeps eye on the URL, and it tries to evaluate this configuration each time when any changes appear in the URL. So let's refresh the page. Nothing is appearing over here. Let's see what's there inside the ITA root. Router outlet is there, but nothing is inside in it. Why? Because nothing got matched in the URL, correct? So let me enter the, what I should push to enter, users. Let's try this. So see, as soon as I say users in the URL, it automatically loaded the user list component for that under that router outlet. Okay. So similarly, so this is what the routing is. Mention the configuration. It will make sure whenever any route changes happen, it will check the configuration and will load the component accordingly. Now on edit, we should open the user edit component, correct? So to do that, earlier what was happening, we are just opening the edit user directly over here just by maintaining the selected user variable, correct? But do you think when you redirect to different component, you will have the selected user variable? No, because that was local to your component. If you look at the code of user list component, you will see that selected user variable is local to your component, correct? You cannot use that variable in different component unless you create a service. But service is not the great solution for such kind of situation. Maybe user can refresh the page when it goes on the edit page. Okay, so to achieve this to solve this problem, what you can do is on click of edit, you can just say something like this in the URL, user slash whatever ID of that user. So why ID? Basically, I am passing the state of a user which is unique, so that the state can help me to load the data on the particular component. Okay, maybe you're confusing. Let's implement that, and you will understand what exactly I'm saying. So I'm going to create one more route which can be user slash ID, user slash some number. So in case of router, how you can do that is, let me close these two files. I have to add one more configuration called as user slash number, but I can mention one, but I want that number can be random, correct? So in this case, you can just mention user slash colon ID. Colon ID meaning whatever comes after the user, that can be considered as an ID variable. Okay. And when this kind of pattern appears in the URL, just go ahead and load a component user. Oh, I haven't created a component. Let's create that first. So to create a component, once again, what you have to do, ng for CLI, generate component user edit. It will generate a component. So that component will be here inside the app folder with 4 files, HTML, CSS, TS, and spec file. And you can check that everything is there. And what you can do right now is go to the routing configuration and add one more routing configuration, which is going to be user slash ID, and load the user edit component. Cool. Something is override. Let's see. It users is there. As soon as I say /1, it should open the user edit component, whichever user edit works as in HTML. Okay, nice. So far we have created a user edits. So, but then what exactly should happen is, when I click on each edit button, it should pass on their respective ID, correct? So how to do that? So what you can do is, you can move on to the users list component.html and have a look at where is the edit button. So edit button is somewhere here. So we want to create some URL based on the current user object ID. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to remove this edit user button because edit user click event, because this is of no use right now. And then I'm going to add a directive provided by Angular router, which directive name is router link. And that router link directive will have some expression, and that expression will be an array, and that array can have a different element, set of strings or number. So over here we have to form a user slash id string, correct, and URL, correct. Over here I'm going to say user slash user dot id, or no, this case I will come to the point. Users have to mention the user dot id in this case. So users have to mention the user dot id in this case. So what will happen is, when you mention the router link directive with only a single parameter, what happens is, as soon as you say edit, it checks what is my current route. So basically, what was the current route? Users. And whatever parameter that you have mentioned in the router link array, it takes the current URL, which is users, and append slash the user ID to it. And if there are multiple parameters like user, username, what would have happened is, this will be like user slash one slash bread. Okay, I hope you understand this. So just want to make things clear. That's why I just mentioned user.id. So dynamically what will happen right now is, as soon as you say user.edit, it will append the user. It will create the user's URL. So for 1 it is 1, for 2 it is 2, for 3 it is 3. Okay, let's go ahead and move this edit user component thing to the respective component, correct, to the user edit component, the edit user HTML2. This HR is not needed right now. I'm moving on to the HTML of user edit, and instead of selected user doesn't sound nice, so I'm going to make it user. Okay, I'm going to comment out this 2 button for now, and just to make sure nothing will break, I will just mention the user object as in blank, so that when I navigate to the user page, it won't throw an error. So let's see what happens. I'm just saying users object, and then I click on, suppose, 4. It should say 4, and it should open the edit user with blank name and username, because we haven't yet figured out how to load the data based on the user ID. Okay, Ashish, how much time is remaining? Half an hour? Okay, half an hour I believe. Okay, cool.
Yes, we have half an hour.
Okay, nice. I will move ahead. Okay, so let's figure out how to do that. So I'm going to first populate the data over here. So what would happen is, first I have to figure out how to retrieve the value from the URL, correct? So to do that, Angular has provided one service called as activated route. As name suggests, what it says is, whatever current route you are in, that route information will be applicable. So I'm just going to console log this. I'm just going to say something in front of it so that I can understand it's coming from this console log route. Just check the console, what's happening. Okay, let me guess something before looking into the router object. So it is of type activated route, that's okay. So 4 is in the URL, so it could be a query parameter or maybe params related something. So let's check the activated route object. Let me go down, let me check There is some params map, but not sure what it is. It is subject, maybe observable. So move ahead. Oh, params. Let's see. It is a behavior subject. Yeah, okay, that's okay, but we can check. Object is there, and ID for. Oh, we may be interested in this object. But let's move ahead. Is there anything present in query params? No, because query params is something else. Like it will be question mark ID is equal to 1. So this is not what we are interested. But then if you look at these two guys, the parameters or the query parameters, these are behavior subjects. So basically we have to subscribe in the component. This is not good. Let's move ahead and check. Is there anything else present? Data is not with what we are looking for. Okay, snapshot is something that we can look in. And inside a snapshot, try to find, oh, see, params object is there, and that params can be ID4. So we can directly retrieve the params from there. So let's do that. What we did, how we navigated to it, the route object, snapshot. Snapshot meaning basically what it is saying is when you landed on this page, whatever is present inside the route information, that current route information, that will be there inside the snapshot. So snapshot generally doesn't refresh if you change the parameter from the same page. If you reload this page, not reload, change the route from this page to 5, it won't, snapshot won't update the information. So maybe in that case you might prefer to use params, but for now just keep in mind snapshot is like a current copy of current route. Okay. So this dot route dot snapshot dot params dot id is we are interested in. So I'm going to say constant id equal to something, and then to do make an ajax call to retrieve the user based on id. And I'm going to remove this. This is a question, how to do that. So let's check JSON placeholder API once again. Did they mention anything? So for any route, if you want to retrieve anything, you can just mention post one. So in our case, users one can be the URL, and that will be a GET call. Yeah, we can do that. So for doing that, what can happen? Tell me. So as I said before, service can be used. Why? A service can hold a utility functions or a common logic or API call, correct? So service is the best place to have this implemented. I'm going to close everything now. I'm going to open the control P user service, and I'm going to add one more method called as get user for this lines, and it is going to be user and just pass on plus ID. So this user get user method will retrieve and will receive an ID as in parameter, and we can form the URL in this way: the users and then pass on the ID /ID. That's okay, but let it make look better. I can just use the template literal of ES6. Oh, nice. And now I have created a get user method which will receive and which will return an observable of this HTTP GET. And how to process the observable? Subscribe to the observable. So inside user edit component, what we can do is we supposed to make an call to this dot user service, but it doesn't exist. So you have to use that. That's why you have to use dependency injection. User service, and use that user service in here. And what should be the method? Oh, something is wrong. User service dot get user method, and we supposed to pass an ID to it, correct? And as I said, when you want to get a emitted value from the observable, just subscribe to it, and first function will be next emitted value. If it has an error, not error, if it succeed, the Ajax call succeed, it will call the first function, which will be the first callback function, going to be user, and we'll see why it is yelling. We will come to that point. User, and then this dot user is equal to user. Cool. What is it saying? Get, oh sorry, this should be get user. This is okay, this is okay. Let's see what happens. Get users page is working fine. Let's select the fifth one, Chelsea Chesley. Oh, it is, I think so. Why it is breaking, I know now. I don't know when it become the mandatory, the reactive forms module. The newer versions. Reactive forms module, reactive forms module. Problem. Yeah. Let me check. Did I saved it? Okay, I did. Okay, what is the error? So somehow something is failing at my end. Let me check at the bottom. ng model user.username is yelling at it. ng model user.username. Let me check the edit user edit component.html. This is where the error is coming from. User.name and user.username. Just save it once again. Oh, I don't know what was wrong. Now it is working. Oh, no, wait. User dot input isn't known property of ng model. Ng model is okay. Let me check the app module. So far it is clear. What is wrong then? Known property of input. ng model, since it is a known property, unknown property of. What could be the problem? Ng model. What if user object must be there inside the input? Input have ng model. That's right, correct. User edit component is a part of app component model. Oh, somehow it did not get added inside this. Not sure why. The edit component should have been added here. Maybe once I got an error where there were a difference between app module.ts, so I overwritten that. So that could have been the case. Let me see if that solves the problem. No, still there is a problem. Oh, sorry, this is TypeScript. I think so. I have to say any here. That was a TypeScript. Sorry about that. It clearly says that m property username does not exist because I have directly mentioned the object, so it took the object here. It should have been resolved now. Yes. Yeah. Nice. Sorry about the glitch. Yeah. So as soon as you do that, what had happened? Let's debug a little bit to understand it in code. As soon as you refresh it, it should make the Ajax call and retrieve the user. And user is nothing but the current user that is there in the URL. Okay, nice. Okay, cool. So far we have what we did is kind of CRUD operation, user list page, and not this one. sorry, users/users is the correct URL. Okay, users list, and this is what got populated. But let me do one thing. Let me open the application like this. Oh, nothing is appearing. Do you know why? Is there any error or is there any problem with the Angular? Maybe or may not be. Let's check the routing configuration. I'm going to close all the thing except app.module.ts. And if you look at the routing configuration, you had said that if you look the user's path in the URL, just open the user list component. And if you see user/id in the URL, open the users edit component. But did you say anything when you don't have anything in the URL and it should do anything? You haven't said anything about that. So you have to handle such kind of scenarios. So to handle such scenario, what you can do is there is some wildcard routing. The route is present, which is star star. That means is if anything doesn't get match, which have been mentioned in the configuration, it will fall back for at the star star route. Make sure you mention this wildcard entry at the bottom of your configuration always. Otherwise, it would mess up if you do that earlier at the first or second level, second number of the number at the in the area of this configuration. So basically, what I'm going to do is if anything is wrong with the if there is no URL matching, then redirect to users page. Let's see what happens. So see, we have achieved that. So basically, if there is nothing in the URL, we are saying just navigate to the users page so that user won't be getting a blank page and all. So we have handled all the scenario. And one more thing, one more glitch is here. So if you click on edit, data is getting populated. There are no update and edit button, update and cancel button. So let's add that quickly. I'm going to add them, and also I may need to add update and cancel function in here. Let's move that code from user list component.ts. Do you remember we have initially implemented it here? So that's where it is failing. Cancel is not a function mentioned in the user edit component. So let's copy this two guys and paste it in here in user edit component, correct? So let me do that. Let's remove the code from it. I just added the update and cancel button over here, the function over here, and let's see. They appeared, and on click of it, nothing will appear because I haven't wrote any code over here. Okay. So let's do a little bit refactoring. I'm just going to say get user and going to move this code from the ng on init to different function. Sorry. So what now we should do is, I'm not going to perform the update and cancel operation because you would be doing a patch call from here, HTTP patch call from here, and in case of cancel, you will be redirecting back to what this page, list page. So maybe instead of cancel, I can say go back to list, and let's implement that behavior. I hope you are not bored. Okay, because I'm speaking a lot. Instead of cancel, I will say go to list. Now, what should happen in both the cases? When you click on update or back to list, in case of update, you will make an Ajax call to service to update a record, correct? And as soon as it updates, when it's success, you will redirect to list page with alert, maybe some good alert. maybe snack bar or toast notification or something like that. So basically we have to see how can we redirect. Correct. How can we redirect? I'm just writing so that we can, just a thought process what I supposed to do in the function, and we should figure out how to do this. But earlier, if you look at this, when I was on users page, on click of edit, I use something which is router link directive. So let's check what was the code over there. Inside the user list component.html, I used router link and I just mentioned user.id. So what had happened is the URL got created and it navigated to the user's edit page. But can we use router link directive over here? Let me check. Can I do that? Where is the user edit component.html? User edit component.html is here. So basically on click of update, I can do this thing, but what will happen is the update function won't get called. It will directly navigate the update on click of this to the list page. If I write the user list over if I form the user list over URL over here, so that is a catch. So we have redirected to a route to particular route using a directive, but now we have to imperatively do it. That was a declarative way because we were using a directive. Now you want to redirect to a user list page from the component code. So how to do that? So for doing that, you can use a router service, and router service can be used same way using dependency injection. That means inside a constructor, mention a variable name and then what exactly you want. I want a router instance, so I say router and simple this dot router dot the first function navigate. Navigate will again accept the array of string or number. So in this case, I want to navigate to users URL. So just need to mention the users, and we'll say just this thing. Same for go to backlist, go back to list function, and let's see what happens. Edit, update, edit. So we basically implemented the full-fledged flow what we need. Ideally, this should have been called from the success of database call, and on the error we could show the toaster notification. But for this for this session I just mentioned how we can redirect. Okay, so far so cool. How much time we have? We have maybe 10 minutes. So Ashish,
Yes, Pankaj.
can we go for a questions or should I continue, because I can also demonstrate how to make a component communication. Maybe we can ask this
Yeah.
to if they are
I
interested.
think we should take some questions also. So they will be refreshed some.
Okay, so what should I do? Should I continue or should I stop? uh, I think I should wrap up because in 10 minutes we
Guys,
can.
please comment. Yeah, sure.
What? Hmm, I believe.
Hello.
Let me wait to see the comments if anyone respond to our, like, should I continue and go ahead for component communication or not? Please continue. Okay. Okay, I will go ahead. Okay, Rohan. So so that will be a smaller thing just to understand. So this is not now beginner state, it is kind of intermediate one what I'm going to teach now. So let me close everything. Now whatever we are seeing in this on this page, this is the user list component and inside that everything is placed, correct? But in ideal scenario, whenever it comes to an architecting any page, there is one pattern called as container and presentational component. so that the loosely coupling will happen. So basically, I just want to demonstrate how two components can communicate. So I'm going to combine these two concepts, presentational and container component, and plus how to communicate between this communicate between two components. So let's go with that. I'm going to create one component called as ng generate. For creating a component, I will fire a command ng generate user and ng generate component, and the component name will be user. And what I will do is this user list component will act as a container component. So what is the meaning of container component and presentational component? So basically, a container component is always responsible for doing the things which he knows. So he's a smart component. He knows everything what supposed to do and what not. But inside that we are going to use a presentational component, correct? So presentational component is just a guy. We will where each record will be a user component, and user component will take an argument, what is the user object, and will show the data. Okay, and when it comes to any operation like edit, delete, or what not, so that time it will just emit an event and it will ask the container component to do that operation. So let's implement that quickly. So I have created one user object, and inside the user object, this is the simple user object. And what we are going to decouple is we are going to decouple user list component inner thing, correct? So how we can do that? So I'm going to copy this for now and going to put that inside the user.component.html that we have created just now, correct? And just going to paste that here. Okay, and let's see what happens. It will yell at it because user object is not there. Let's see what happens. Yeah, okay, we haven't used it yet. Okay. Let me close this. Okay, let's try to use this user component. Sorry, how to do that? I will go to the user list component first, and inside that I will comment this line. I will comment this line KC, and we'll say I introduction to Angular ITA user. Okay, and let's see what happens. As soon as I said that, there is a edit button but with errors. Error is name of undefined because user object is not there. So basically we are going to pass a user object to ITA user component, correct? So how to do that? I want a user object in some way, like the user list component will be passing to user component. Okay, so let's go to the user list component.html. And how can I do that? So to do that, you can pass it as in property binding. But let's see if I do that, what will happen. I did that and I'm moving back to the application, and it is saying that can't bind user since it is known property of ITA user. So basically, whenever you see that this kind of error, and whenever you mention the property binding, what happens is on top of that DOM, it search for the property with name user. If it is input element, it would have searched the property user in that input element. If it is not, then it check for is there a directive present with the user attribute. Okay, if that is not, it checks whether it is component and is there any property mentioned inside the component. So what is property? So let's come back to a concept where you can accept something from the component, the parent component, and over here I said I'm going to accept something as an input from whoever is going to use it, and that will have a property binding to use a user. Okay, so let me drink some water, give me a moment. user. So if you see that, what will happen now is, I will refresh this page. And is there anything wrong? This is user object and user.id, user edit, sorry, user.component.html is there, but let me see user list page. What I'm doing over here is, for ITA user, I'm passing the user as an input property and the value will be user. Nice, this is correct. Let's check the user component.ts. I mentioned the input, which is going to be user. Okay, and this is correct. So let's see why it is error. Okay, that works. So if you look at this now, what will happen is, inside ITA user list component, inside each li you will see ITA user component. So this way you have divided your component into sub component, but the user list component is going to be a smart component and the inner component is going to be dumb component, because you just passed some information to the user component and it just rendered it. Correct. Now let's come to the next step where there will be a cases. Let me do this routing change to fire some function, maybe edit, and not edit, on click of it will fire a edit function, suppose, and that edit function is there inside the user edit component, not user edit component, user component.ts edit. Okay. From here, instead of router link, I'm going to navigate it from here. So for that, I would need a router directive. Correct. And this router navigate to user slash id. So over here, I will pass the user object and then user.id, and check the edit function which have been called from user component, and in there pass user object, and let's see everything is fine or not. This is the user list component. Inside that 10 times user component is there. As soon as I click on edit, it redirected. But now what you did recently is you redirected it from the child component. So basically this component is also taking care of redirection. But in ideal case, what could happen is, maybe in some cases edit button should redirect to the component, the next route, or maybe open a pop-up. So the component which is using user object will take care of that scenario. Correct. So in that case, what you can do is, the dumb component should not know what should happen. Correct. So in this case, we are going to say some edit event happened to the parent component. Who is the parent component of user? Who is using it? User list component. So to do that, there is one more way to communicate with parent component is output property. So output property basically helps you to communicate with the parent component, and it emits an event. So over here you are going to say event emitter from Angular. Okay, and this is the edit object. It should not be edit, it should be edit user, so that the name would conflict. I will just change it over here, and let's come back to the user edit. And whenever you just want to somehow indicate the parent component, hey, edit button have been clicked, please take care of what should happen in the edit event. So that time you will just say edit dot emit and value. Emit meaning what value should be passed to the user list component, and that will be user. I will say that this user component will say that the particular user have been clicked please take care of it, correct? Yeah. So let's come back to the user list component.html. So far we rendered it. Now user list component has to take care of the edit event, correct? So to do that, I already said that parenthesis stands for event and square bracket stands for property binding. So over here I'm going to mention the parenthesis, but what should I mention in the parenthesis event? Let's look at the user component, and the output property name is edit. So edit event is going to emit. You just mention the edit event, and then what expression you want to call, maybe edit user here. Okay, and the edit user function, the edit user function should exist inside this user list component. So edit user is already there. Let's use router in here. Okay. So this should redirect to what? Navigate to user slash, sorry, it accepts an array. Okay, nice. So basically it concatenates, not list, only users, sorry. Let's see what happens. Sorry, this is not that. It should not redirect. Sorry about that. Let me console log that only. If I receive the edit user function have been called or not. Let's see. We are going to put a debugger and we'll see step by step what had happened. So first thing, I'm going to open user component.ts. Going to the edit user. Next thing, I am going to open the user list component.ts. I'm going to put a debugger on edit user function. So when I say edit on the, this is user component, on the user component, it will fire the edit user function. Okay, this is edit user function of user component. So this is going to intimate a parent component, which is user component, user list component, saying that there is an event that is emitted with edit and the object is user, and automatically, since we have used event binding here, it will automatically call the edit user function over here. Let's see. Oh, nice. So edit user list component, list component.ts edit user function got called, and the user should be some value, some error is there. So we will come to that point. So nothing got populated here. To get that value, remember at the beginning I said you must remember the $event variable name. So this is always emitted when any event happens on the DOM or any event happens from the output binding. You must have make sure that $event should be used in that case. Let's do the operation once again. Page got refreshed, and it is user component edit user function, then edit user function of user list, and see user what is it, user of the currently clicked object. Okay, now from user list you can navigate that user to particular route, suppose user.id, or better, I hope it should work. So by this way you got to know about the input binding to pass some data to the child component, and output binding so that the child component can tell the parent component what data has been emitted, and you can perform the operation whatever you want. So I'm getting rid of the debugger and see, yeah, everything is happening. So that's what the component communication is. Oh, I'm 5 minutes late, sorry. So Ashish, yeah, so thank you for listening. I hope this is very helpful for beginners who are getting started on Angular. And yeah, thanks for coming and taking a time from this lockdown and attend our event. Yeah, thank you, Ashish.
Yeah, thanks everyone. So, are we ready to take the questions?
Yes, I am ready. Should I stop sharing? Okay, I did.
No. Yeah, thanks. Okay. So we can now, we have first question from Chetan. So he has asked what are the basic machine configuration needed to work with Angular?
So yeah, to answer that, it is same as that of what configuration is needed for npm. The same configuration will be needed for your machine. So better to have 8 to 16 GB RAM, and accordingly the hard disk. Yeah, that would be better. And i3 processor or more than that, above than that. Yeah.
Okay, so next question from Nitin Kale.
Hmm. So we can change our main file by changing the con. Yeah, you can do that. That is kind of entry file. So the way bootstrapping happens in current Angular version is, um, basically it. If you look at the angular.json file, you will see that there is a main option in builders, main option, then polyfills, then I believe there are more options. So out of which main represent the entry file, which is main.ts by default. You can change it. If you change sometime what happens is, those guy who used to do ssr that time, the main.ts file are having two versions: main server.ts, main hyphen server.ts, and main hyphen client.ts. So that time you would have a provision. In those cases you can change the configuration, and you can point to particular file you are referring to for main.ts. Yeah. I
Okay,
hope that.
so next question is from the same guy.
Yeah. Provider in root means it's a part of bootstrap module. Yes. So provider in root means, when you bootstrap, you are correct. Like, when you bootstrap a model in main.ts, you mention app model generally. So when you say root, it will directly points to a root of your application. That's correct. So this is basically introduced because in Angular 7, because earlier when we used to add providers in array directly, the providers were not tree shakeable. By having this option, the tree shaking of the service is happening. So you can
Yeah,
mention
so
provider in as in root, platform, or a particular module.
Siddharth also answered his question here.
Yes,
So just flashing it.
yes. Registering the service as a part of root engine. Correct.
This was something from Siddharth.
Yes.
And some appreciations for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Siddharth bhai.
Here's Rusty,
Yes. Thank you, Srishti.
Martira,
Thank you.
again Siddharth.
No question. Am I
Yeah,
that good?
we have some. Just a minute.
Let's see for 1 or 2 minutes if anyone asks a question. Otherwise, we will end the stream. I think I have bored a lot. How many people are
No,
there
no.
in the stream?
Now we are with only 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that? I missed to read it. What?
No, actually, it was like he suggested to use TagBliss. Then again, he
Okay, I'm not. I personally face a problem while navigating between the stack bleeds on my small 13-inch screen. So sometimes what happens is font become too big, and I won't able to manage to switch between the different files. So I will see. I will practice more to use stack bleeds. Maybe in next session I will use that.
okay.
Thank you,
So
Siddharth.
Ayush has one question.
Okay. Ayush, I have a question. How can I start learning a bit advanced level of Angular as I am already at intermediate level? So Ayush, for that, what I would suggest is maybe you can go. So Angular in depth is a very good source to read um, advanced concept about Angular. But I think what you could do better now is you can review your code from your peer who is uh, good experience in Angular and take some suggestions from him. Obviously, he's going to give a better suggestion, and just don't apply those solution to your application. Just try to get into the depth of it and solve the problem properly, because there are 100 ways of solving the problem, but out of them four or three or four ways are correct. So to try to stay with those three and four ways, you will automatically get into the depth knowledge of Angular. That's what I have found while learning Angular. I
Okay.
hope this answer would help.
Another question from Chaitanya.
Mhm. So in this case, maybe I can say Angular as in MV star. But if you are thinking in perspective or of MVC, then model can be considered as a service which help you to get the data. Controller is nothing but a component, and the template is nothing but a view. So M stands for service, V stands for HTML, and C stands for a component. So component should have a very less logic. That's why you when I was starting, I had started the coding. At the time of that, I have added the user list inside my component itself. But later on, I moved it to service, so that if you look at the component code now, you will find that it is having very less amount of code. Service is taking care of model related operation, and component is just like controller, which is going to say, hey, I want to do this thing, I will delegate it to service, and service will make some operation, and it will say, yeah, just maintain this variable and assign some value to it, so that it will reflect on the view, so that so the way MVC communicate, the standard classical pattern comes into the picture. So you really don't have to map MVC with Angular. Yeah, that's correct, because yeah, DJ is like yeah, DJ is correct. So I mean, don't try to map it with the concept, just try to unlearn it and start from the scratch. And what I have found while learning, you can apply your own models, meaning not MVC and all, but your own understanding model and think in that perspective. That may help you. Thanks, DJ.
We
Thanks
have
for.
another question from Chetan.
Okay. How can we send back data from user edit component to the user list page? So, Chetan, you can do that using service, Angular service, but in ideal real world application, when you edit a data, it shouldn't be storing into the local storage, correct? It should go into the database, and from the database we should get the data and show it on the UI. So basically what should ideally happen is, when you are on user edit page, on submit of that edit page, it will send that ajax call. It will make an ajax call with patch request to update the particular user entity, and as soon as the operation is completed, it will navigate back to the user list page, and user list page should again make an ajax call to get all the list of users. So in this case, what we are doing is, we are doing two things. We are making the we are getting the persisted data, the latest version of a data, as soon as user is landing on the user list page. And this is what the ideal case we should be doing. If you directly, from user edit page, you are passing the data to the list page, there might be a case like, in between your edit operation, somewhere some other user might have updated that record. so you might not get that update. Okay, so for not having that kind of trouble, you can always get the user list always from the database. But you can do this operation using service, but I would not recommend that.
Okay, so no more questions. We will
Okay.
wait for some time if you want.
No, I think so. We should close.
Yeah, so I'm putting your Twitter handle.
Yes. So let me, yeah. Okay. You can put my Twitter handle. Let me share my screen and maybe I can just say our Twitter handle is. Yeah, you can follow me on the Twitter handle Pankaj Parkar. And for Ashish, it is, correct me Ashish if I am not wrong, Devashish Kumar, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is our Twitter handle. You can follow us here and see if you have any question anytime, feel free to DM me or ask on a tweet. I will answer that as soon as I will be free. Okay. So do you? So I think I'm done. Ashish, do you have anything to say?
Uh, at last, I will say thanks to everyone for making this event good. And uh, I'm sorry for some glitches which happened, but we'll improve it.
Yeah, that we will learn step by step. I mean, that
Yeah.
come by experience. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for attending the event. Thanks for taking a time and
Yeah,
listening.
we have some new questions.
Okay. This
Yeah,
is a
again, Ayush Puri, he's asking for another session.
can we have session on interceptor? Yeah. So DJ have written a very good article on the interceptor, how to do that. Yeah, we can have the session, but I would paste I would paste that link in the chat so you can refer to that. Uh, yes. So any topic, this is future because today was awesome. Sure, we will plan to have some session more on weekends, probably after 2 3 weeks. Let's see how things goes. I think that will be little bit intermediate session and then we will move on to the advanced. We will not directly jump onto the advanced part because this was very basic to get started. Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Thanks for
So,
organizing.
one more.
Yeah.
Yeah, Santosh sir has appreciated you.
Thanks. Thank you, Santosh sir. Thanks for attending.
Yeah, I will really improve it as well. Thank you, Sid bhai.
Okay.
So
I think
we can now conclude our session.
yeah. Thanks for attending, and yeah, if you have any question, please feel free to uh, ping us on our Twitter handle for Ashish or me. We will respond as soon as possible to your questions. And yeah, thanks to Codecasm and Ashish who has taken effort to arrange this event. Without you, it wouldn't have been possible. Thanks to making an effort for that.
You actually helped a lot to get into it.
Yeah,
Thanks
that's
to you.
okay. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, no problem. I think we should end the stream because we are 20 minutes um,
Yes, sure, sure.
ahead. Yes. Okay. Thank you. See you next time. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Thanks, Martina. Ashish. Oh,
Thank you, DJ sir. Oh, sorry. It was from DJ sir again.
thanks, DJ, for attending. Thank you so much. It was always for us. You are the inspiration.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we are concluding this session.
Mhm.
Thanks again, Pankaj bhai.
Yep. Bye. We are already 2 hours 20 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. Bye bye.